Joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, a former CIA case officer who sits on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Congresswoman, thanks for being with us this morning. You know, you started your CIA career at the beginning of this war on terror, and I know that your work remains classified, of course, but fighting Islamic terrorism was obviously a major part of it. So I want to ask you, I mean, as someone who's dedicated your whole life to this fight, was it worth the cost in blood and in treasure?
We had a very clear mandate when the United States of America went into Afghanistan after the 9/11 attacks, and that was to go after those who gave safe harbor to the perpetrators of 9/11. And ultimately, the United States of America, took on years worth of efforts to undo the strongholds that had given birth to al-Qaeda, safe harbor to al-Qaeda, and allowed for the creation of the organizations that would ultimately attack us on 9/11. And so we have achieved the goals that we set out to follow, hitting at the heart of al-Qaeda, killing Osama bin Laden, going after those who gave safe harbor to the perpetrators of 9/11, and certainly those who perpetrated that horrific attack. And that was the goal set forth, clearly outlined in the 2001 authorization of use of military force. And that effort and the thousands of service members who've lost their lives in support of that effort is one that we achieved. And so at this time, it's a challenging decision for the president to make. But the decision to bring home and end our military engagement in Afghanistan is a decision that's been overdue for some time. And ultimately, though difficult and not without its risks, I believe it's the right decision at this time.
There has been some criticism, and it's tied to what you were just saying about the risks, and it's not just from Republicans. Michelle Flournoy was a top Obama Pentagon official, and she was a finalist to be Biden's defense secretary as well. But listen to what she had to say about Biden's move.
We are in a position where our forces are like, the boy with the finger in the dike. And when we remove that finger, I think that the flood's going to come. We have to focus on our interests, which is, preventing Afghanistan from being a safe haven for terrorism. It's going to be much harder to do that without troops in country.
Are you concerned about that? Will pulling out the already low troop levels turn Afghanistan effectively into a failed state?
So I am concerned about it. At this point, we're talking about fewer than 3,000 soldiers coming out of Afghanistan. And I think it's fair, and coming from an intelligence background, as you mentioned, I was a former CIA officer. Our whole scope is to plan for all of the possible worst case outcomes. But I do think that in the case of Afghanistan and in the decision that the president has made, it is at this point almost 20 years, an entire generation of service members who have rotated through Afghanistan with a goal that has been met years and years and years ago. And I think an important piece here is that we have many tools that we utilize. And while the military members and service members on the ground in Afghanistan are one part of that, our engagement with Afghanistan is not limited to military engagement. It's diplomatic, it's intelligence sharing and engagement through our intelligence community. And so on the ground, our diplomatic and intelligence-based efforts will continue. And I think that notably the Biden administration and President Biden, having served on the Foreign Relations Committee, having been Vice President of the United States for 2 terms, has a very strong and clear regard for the work of the United States State Department and career diplomats. And I think that as we make this transition to pulling out actively engaged military members, that the Biden administration will rightly so lean far more on our diplomats and intelligence officials to ensure that we continue to know what's happening on the ground.
Turning to Russia, one of the other big, geopolitical challenges this administration has, President Biden said he spoke to Putin and suggested a summit between the two leaders, but he also punished Russia for its election interference and its role in a massive cyber hack. The president also announced some sanctions. I wonder, he says that he wants a stable and predictable relationship with Russia. But these sanctions and the tension that seems to be there, doesn't that seem to escalate tensions?
Well, so I would argue that the aggressions that we, the United States of America, have felt from Russia over the past few years are aggressive actions that cannot go unanswered. We know, and it's in the public, not unclassified threat assessment report, and it's been documented elsewhere in the public view, that Russia sought to influence our elections and the American electorate, sow discord in the United States in the 16 election, 18 election, and 20 election. We also know that the Solar Winds hack. So this is an effort that the Russian government undertook to go after essentially the technology utilized in the United States of America so that they could have back doors into the computer systems of U.S. government agencies and businesses across the country. This is a direct attack on our information, on our capability, and on our government agencies. And previously, under the last administration, it went unanswered and, in fact, in many cases, excused. And so while I do think that we should work towards getting to a stable place in our relationship with Russia, that does not begin by us just ignoring aggressive act after aggressive act. And so putting sanctions against specific Russian individuals and companies and expelling 10 Russian diplomats known to be intelligence officers, I think is a strong showing that we will not permit them or accept them aggressing against us or our democracy. And then we move on from there.